Hey, it's Stephanie, and today on Unwritten, I have a really awesome guest, and her name is Naomi Rose. She is a business strategist and she is a marketing expert. So, what I'm super excited about with Naomi and why I wanted her on the podcast, because a lot of my podcast guests are more about some of the personal struggles they've overcome. But with Naomi, she's helping people like me. And like me, because I'm a photographer, and growing up, I never thought I could be an artist and make a living. Everyone told me that was stupid and it wasn't anything I could do. They told me to be a nurse or marry a doctor or become a teacher. And Naomi is here to tell us that that is absolutely untrue, that you can make a living being a photographer, an artist, a musician, a singer, a songwriter. There's there's room in this world for freaking everybody. So, Naomi, thank you for being here and let's kind of dive into how you became an expert in this field.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be on this podcast. And I just love talking to creatives. I love getting to know how they get to where they are. So I'm really excited to be here. Well, actually, it's funny because I'm a creative myself. Even though I do business strategy and marketing now, I have been a musician since I can remember, really. I grew up with a piano in the house. And as a child, a piano in the house, you tend to just play it. It's just one of those things. And as I got older, I really got captivated by flute, actually. It was my first instrument that I learned to play. And I was about 7 years old. And I remember watching my teacher, who was called Miss Moody, and she played the flute in assembly. And I thought, that's what I want to do in my life. I want to be a professional flute player. So I learned the flute, but as it transpired by the grand old age of 9, I had a flute teacher that came to the school, and she told my mum that I would never be professional. It was my dream to be a professional flute player, but I would never be professional because my teeth stuck out. That was what she told me at 9 years old. And in the world of music, you tend to start at a really young age. So it was kind of quite hard hitting to hear that so young, to think, actually, this is the thing I've dreamt about. Obviously, you would never say that to a child. It's the most ridiculous thing. I have known musicians, I've known pianists with one arm that are concert pianists that are incredible. So it's complete mess. But my family were practical. So not only did she immediately obviously get fired, but they said, well, why didn't you learn a string instrument? Because you're more likely to get into orchestras because you need more cellos and you need more violins. And I'm like, well, I'm not playing the violin because that just sounds hideous for the first year. So we went with cello. So I learned to play the cello. And that was my, I suppose by that point, my second instrument, if you like, or third, because I still played the piano. And I went into being a classical trained cellist, and I went to music college after that and learned to play the cello. And I was by that point 10 years old, I think, when I started the cello.
Oh,
But in the world of orchestral playing, you're quite old by that point. If you're starting to learn at that point, you need to be grade 8 by the time you're 15, 16 to be professional. So it's a real interesting that we're talking about being creative. My background is very much creative. So how I ended up getting into doing the sort of business strategy and marketing side, because even though my natural go-to is creativity, I love organizing. I love a spreadsheet. There is something that I just find fascinating behind the scenes of how things get set up and organized and run. And I went actually coming out of university, I was actually then told by the teachers that I was learning from that I would have to practice a lot harder to get into professional orchestras. And I didn't want to be a music teacher. I wanted to perform. I didn't want to sit behind the scenes. So I carried on playing in orchestras as I was anyway. But I went into doing arts management. I went into doing a master's there. So I went behind the scenes of what it's like to manage events, festivals, theatres, shows, indoor, outdoor, all sorts of things. And I worked doing that for quite a few years and learning. I did my master's degree actually while I was doing that at the same time. So I learned like how to develop audiences, how to get what, as you call it, bums on seats. What were the things, what were the barriers that were stopping people coming to arts events? Because I just couldn't believe, as what you were saying before, that unless you're mega famous, which is what I was told, you can have passion, you can have profit, but you can't have both. They're not the two things that go together. It's just so incorrect. Of course, it is really, really not true. And I wanted to prove that the arts could be set up to run like a business in the right way, with the right minds behind it, of people who understood what it was like to be an artist, but also knew how it was to actually set things up, run things, and make a profitable business out of them. So that was really what I kind of got into from there. And that's where I started to learn my trade. And I fell into marketing a little bit off the back of that, because I was working for a venue at the time and doing all of the outdoor festivals when social media started creeping in the scene. And I was the most techie person there. So I kind of got given anything to do with digital marketing because I understood it. And I was like, social media is going to change how we communicate, how we market things. We have got to get on board with this. And I was really pushing for that. So they let me. So because I was the only one that was free. So they let me do that. And I learned so much from that. And marketing then from that point on, you saw it change from being broadcast to very much communication, which is what a lot of creators are doing anyway. So we had to change how we marketed things. And it was such an interesting learning. And I just loved blending that creative side with the marketing. And marketing can be really creative, but being able to do it strategically so you saw the results, so you could see how everything was growing and developing. And that's where my career really started.
Yeah, so thanks to, your flute player your flute your flute teacher at 7 years old, uh, now you're here and you're actually helping people much like yourself, correct? That
Yeah.
were able to go on. Um, at first off, that's unfortunate, but it's just interesting that you found this path back into music. But it's
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm the same way. So grew up playing piano before I could read. I could read notes before I could read a book, and played instruments all through middle school. And I had an uncle who was very much in the UW Madison, which is a big college here, orchestra scene. But I didn't have that drive. I always just wanted to be either writing or taking pictures or drawing or painting. So it's you're bringing back all these old memories as you're talking about your childhood, which is what I love about this podcast or just podcasts in general. And I learned how to market myself, and I found a lot of joy in that too. So I feel like our stories are really similar. So thank you for being so open and honest. And it when when I feel that connection, that means like you're in just being open. So thank you. And
Oh, no problem.
yeah, when when you first started with marketing, then did you? I know you. Did you go to school for whatever happened after middle school when you said, okay, to be in an orchestra, you really have to start young. Um, whatever happened after 16, then did you go right into working, or did you go to school, or
Well, actually, I did both. I worked while I went to university. So basically, I still carried on doing the music. And actually, I went what we call here in the UK, it's like sixth form, which is for 17 and 18-year-olds. And I went to the one that offered the best music department. So I went there, which was such a great experience. I mean, they let me drop all my other subjects and all I had to focus on was music, because not that I knew then, but I was actually quite heavily dyslexic and I didn't know because they didn't test back then. It wasn't something that I volunteered because it cost money. It wasn't until I actually got into music college and went there that they were openly offered testing, because the stats have probably changed a bit now, but then it was at least 1 in 3 people who are creative are dyslexic, because they shy away from the academia because their brains are suited to other skills, and creativity is one of them. And it was so blatantly obvious that I was dyslexic. I've got my brother is also quite heavily dyslexic, so it runs in our family. But that's probably why he's very practical minded, and I'm very creative minded, so there's similar traits. So I went on, and then the masters, which is where I then went to learn the arts management, came after that. So after I got out of university and realized that I didn't want to teach, I wanted to perform. But similarly, I had the misdiagnosed belief that you had to choose passion or profit.
Yeah.
So I had to do something that I believed was practical, and I understood, like I had a natural ability to understand like the spreadsheets and organization and events, and but I had all done, like I've got a huge family, and like if there was any family event from about the age of 13 or 14, I was the one that organized it. And even if it was like my niece's or nephew's christening, and there were 100 people turning up, I would do it because I loved doing it. It was the sort of thing I just loved to do. So I kind of had that love of organizing and getting everything in methodical order and having a plan. But I also like the fun bits of like getting to do the decorations and getting to pick the music and doing all those little touches along the way. So that's where I thought, actually, this is where I can have an understanding of how to, I know how to be creative because I love it, but I can actually use that creativity to aid the actual structure of what it takes to think like a business and organize things and get it to where it is, because my brain is creative by nature, but I can also work with artists, and I understand the process of what an artist would go through or what a creative would need to do, which can then be accommodated in the planning part to be able to bring the best out of them or the event or whatever it is we're doing, and use that creativity to create epic marketing stuff. That was the fun bit, because marketing actually, it needs strategy behind it, as does a business. A business always needs strategy. I'm a true believer in that, because you need to know where you're going. But it doesn't mean you can't do it creatively. You can't be clever about it. You can't have fun while you're doing about it. And some people just, their natural instincts isn't to go to spreadsheets and plan. That's not their bag. Just like I couldn't build a house, it is not my bag. So you find the
Right.
people that understand that. So that's why I love working with artists, because I understand some of the processes they might go through and how they work and what they do. But I know what I can do to turn that into something that will give them a solid foundation to have something that they can actually enjoy and get an income out of, which is what we all want at the end of the day.
Yeah. That's what I mean, that's our dream, right? To have
Yeah.
that balance. So, you run your own consulting company, correct?
Yes, I do.
How did you get your first client? Or who was your first client? Let's get the juice.
Well, actually, this isn't my first business. Actually, this is
Oh,
my technically my third, I suppose. If although it kind of, the one I'm in now has kind of changed direction. I actually had sort of 15 years working in the arts. I also worked in the charity sector as well. So I worked in nonprofit, which
wow.
you learn so much about how you can be really creative with next to nothing in the charity sector and make the most of everything. It's a real great experience to work in that kind of sector, and as well as working corporate. So I've understood both sides of it, how to do like all the big scale budgets and everything like that. But I realized that I'd ended up in this sort of 9 to 5 job. I kind of, and it's not my natural go-to. I'm a musician. I I like the kind of ad hoc hours, and I really wanted to work for myself. And I had an opportunity that came up, and it was completely left field of what I was actually going to leave my company and do, which was actually go into what I'm doing now. But there was this building that appeared in my local town that they were renovating, and it was really run down. And I walked into it one day, and the lady who was renovating it said, "Do you want to come and have a look in?" And I'm curious because I love buildings. Both my husband and I love looking at different properties, seeing what's going on and everything like that. And I walked in, and it was a disused nightclub, but actually underneath the disused nightclub was a 1920s Art Deco building with the original parquet flooring, a lot of the original beautiful ceiling work. And I mean, honestly, you wouldn't know it was there from the state it was in, but it was gorgeous. I went in and went, this would make the most amazing cafe and bar. And I had this vision that I could turn it into a venue for music. I could do all of these different things in there. And this idea that was just sort of this kind of very distant dream suddenly turned into a little bit of a reality. And I quit. I'd already quit my job anyway, because I'm someone who quits before they've actually found someone else, somewhere else to go, because that's the way my brain works. And I'm like, this is what we're going to do. And I started talking about it. And my dad was like, well, he'd been retired for a few years and was getting a little bit bored. He said, well, why don't we? What have we got to lose apart from regret? So let's just do it. So we did. So my first business was actually a cafe and bar, which I then later also crowdfunded a bakery. But it was also a space for entertainment. I had live music in there, I had artists in there, and it was such a beautiful space for that. And it was about turning that passion. And I love baking. Again, baking is another creative thing, but based on methodology, which is the two things I love. And I'm not a professional baker by any means. I've never run my own business. It was completely mad, but just sometimes when something catches you, you just have to take the opportunity and go, I don't want to be sitting in my chair at 90 years old regretting I never did that. So that's what I did. And I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I can have my own venue. I can be able to make homemade cakes. It's going to be that place where you can come, sit down, relax, enjoy a coffee, whether you're on your own with friends, with family. And then I also developed into a cocktail bar, because apparently I don't drink, but everybody wants cocktails these days. So I'm like, okay, we need to do a cocktail bar, which again is so much fun because of the creative side of it. So that's where I went first. And I did that for a few years through the pandemic, crowdfunded the bakery, and sadly had to close that coming up to about 18 months to 2 years ago, because it just didn't become financially sustainable in the end, because of the price hikes here in the UK around the energy bills. There was suppliers that had put their prices up so much, let alone getting stock. Everything had just gone against me. And the business and my team were fantastic, but I had to, as a business owner, put aside my emotions and make the most sensible call. And from that journey, then I could have quite easily said, I'm going to go back to working for someone else. I just did not want to lose all of that knowledge I'd learned from running my own business, because I learned it from mostly a lot of Google and a lot of mistakes. I had no mentor. I didn't have a mentor at all through that journey. It was crazy. I don't know how, looking back at it now, I managed that, because I couldn't find the right person. And that was what really frustrated me. There was no one who really understood, or was in the hospitality industry. You serve with a smile and everything's all hunky-dory behind the scenes. But actually, in reality, what goes into putting a cup of coffee on the table is a huge amount of work, huge volume. And I had to learn that pretty much from the internet, because I couldn't find the right person to help me. They either wanted to do big brands or retail, or they were a general business mentor, which wasn't the right person to understand the ins and outs of how you write a menu. I mean, I thought menu would be the fun bit. I didn't realize the operation behind a menu would affect how you store your ingredients, how quickly can you serve your customers, how much space have you got in the kitchen, what does the flow look like. It affected everything. So there was all of these little nuances that I didn't know, and went in completely blind, doing my, oh, this is all going to be lovely. And it was an incredible experience. It was incredibly hard work, but I just wanted to take that and be able to share what I'd learned. I wanted to be open. I wanted people to be aware of what it took to get a cup of coffee to the table for a customer, and be able to say to hospitality businesses, hey, I've been there. I know what you're going through. You can talk to me because I've done it. So you're not alone in this, because so many business owners go through that journey alone. So that is kind of how I ended up getting to this point. So I came out of doing the cafe, and I'm like, I'm going to take all of that marketing knowledge, all of that business strategy knowledge, all of the knowledge that I learned from running my own brick and mortar business, and turn it into what I've done before, which is blending everything that I've done before into what I do now. So that is how I kind of ended up with my first business. So I guess my first client, my first customer, we
You
were
were your
so
first customer.
yeah, my first customer came in and ordered a coffee, which is probably not the journey you expected me to go on. So, but in a way, I remember we all remember, my team and I, we recreated the photo. We found an old photo of when the building was originally opened in 1929. We recreated that photo on our opening day, and we literally stood there thinking, would nobody come in? Anyway, they did. They came in droves. We were literally running around like headless chickens, but it was the biggest learning curve. So but probably much to the shock of our first customer, we took a picture of him slightly frantically, and I had that picture, and he was a regular, right, and right through the whole entire journey. He came back almost at least once a week, if not 2 or 3 times a week throughout that entire thing. So my first customers were actually people that brought my food. When I sort of pivoted and took what I've known now and turned that back in, I had to sort of rebuild that entire audience. I was starting completely from scratch. So I first started in doing a bit of recipe writing, teaching baking, as well as helping hospitality businesses.
Oh, okay.
But throughout that journey, I realized actually I'd forgotten how much I knew about online business and how much I'd done with online work, because I'd done brick and mortar for so many years. But all of the knowledge I had before was all to do with online. It was all to do about building campaigns, launching services, reaching audiences and reaching the right audiences and being creative. So the more I kept speaking to people, the more I kept going, I can help you actually. I can help you with that. And that's how I sort of started to get my kind of first clients, was by just having those open conversations, really. And some of those clients were people that actually used to come to my cafe. So they've known me for running a business, which was really interesting, considering I'm like, why would you even think to come to me? Because I've been serving you coffee and cake and making you lunch for the past however many years. But when you start to have those conversations with people and you resonate with them and you make that connection, that I think is more important. It's about finding the person that's right for you. Just like I couldn't find the right mentor for me when I was starting my business, it is about finding the right person for you. So sometimes it's just really, for me, and also I'm very straight talking, so I will ask questions because I've had to deal throughout my career. Like I've said, I've worked in charity sector, and sometimes you're having to deal with people that have huge amounts of knowledge that maybe a scientific base. So they have lots of very analytical, data-driven knowledge, which doesn't necessarily translate to the outside world of what you want actually people to buy into from you. And it was my job to basically be the translator in that. So I would ask a lot of questions, and people would say, well, don't you need to know all of this? I'm like, I need to be able to understand what people are going to see from the outside. So
Yeah.
I, for you and the customer, because if I don't understand it, they're not going to understand it, and we're not going to get the support that we need to move forward. So that's how I look at things. So when I start to work with people, I'm usually I ask a lot of questions, and then I will ask why a lot. Why that one? Why are you doing that? What's the reason behind it? Because I want to, not because I don't think anyone's doing anything wrong in that sense, but I need to understand what's going on behind the scenes so I can turn it into something that works for them, that works for the clients or the customers, and that they can make coherent and reach their goals. Because if I don't understand why, I can't help them get there in that right way.
Did you end up getting a coach or anything for this business? I know you said that you didn't have anybody to help you at the beginning with the bakery and the coffee shop, but are you still being that person for yourself? Or have you
No,
found somebody?
I work with coaches now.
Okay.
I've had mentors now, and it's because I'm self-motivated anyway, so it's not the motivation, it's not the accountability I need. It's more that I think for me, it's just about having that person you can go to and say, am I going in the right direction? Or someone that can look at your business from the top down and just go through it and go, yeah, I can see clearly for you, because they're not emotionally attached in the same way you are. And
Right.
that was the one thing about having the cafe, bar and bakery. I was very emotionally attached to it. As you can imagine, I felt very much responsible, particularly closing it down for people's jobs, but also it was quite a big part of the community. And the crowdfunding the bakery really showed that kind of power that had. I realized that the business was bigger than me. So when I actually stepped away from that, I needed someone that would be able to, or two or three different people, because there's different mentors for different areas that I know I need help with or I need support with. And I need people to be able to look at it from a perspective that isn't mine and challenge me. Even my dad, who's been he's been a business partner, he's still a silent business partner. He actually plays the role of what I call the antagonist. He will question everything I'm doing, mostly to make sure that I feel comfortable with it. And if I've got any doubt, then he'll pull me up on it. So yes, I'm a big believer in having a coach. I think it just helps you keep going. If you want to go up to that next level, keep you focused on where you need to go, and have that support that when you're on your own, you don't have. It can be quite a lonely place. Just someone to kind of go, hey, I've got this client, they want this, but I'm not sure about it. And you can tell from, particularly from my mentors' faces, I'll be like, yeah, you already know the answer to this, don't you? I'm like, I kind of do, but I needed to run it past someone. And it's almost having that, just someone to back you up on it. Sometimes your own thinking, or I used to call it in one of my teams that I used to manage, can you be my rubber duck? And basically you just needed someone else to sit there and not really say much, but so you could talk it out loud, like
Yeah.
you're talking to a rubber duck.
Yeah. Um, so let's talk about your business and who are your ideal clients and how are you helping people that need you? How are you helping getting those seats, what we talked about, butts and chairs,
Yeah,
bums and chairs?
yeah, yeah.
How do you take somebody that, just calls you for a consult? I don't know if you offer a lot of coaches offer
Mhm.
consults. So how do you take them from where they're at to where they want to be? What are some of the steps that you kind of help walk them through?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I actually have devised a method which I've used for in my own businesses, but also for other people's and throughout my career, which has worked really, really well for me, which is why I've kind of developed it. And it's called the API method. So I call myself the digital GP. So a GP in the UK stands for general practitioner, which is basically your general doctor.
Yeah.
So you feel sick, you don't feel well, you go to your doctor and they'll be able to help you out and put you on the right path again. I'm a bit like that for businesses. So people come to me when they're stuck. People come to me when they're thinking, actually, something's not right working here. Either the world has changed, they've changed, the business isn't going the way they thought, or they've just decided that they've got to make a change for their business to work better for them. Because sometimes when we start in a business, it runs away with us. We get carried away in the momentum, and suddenly 2 or 3 years down the line, you feel like you're working all hours, not making the money you want to make, and your business is not going to where you want it to go to. It just happens because we're learning every time we step into business. We're learning all the time. That's where I can come in and really help. That's where I can kind of look at what exactly is going on and find the right solution. So this is why I devised the API method. So it stands for audit, plan, and implement. So the absolute first thing I would do is, like I was saying, I'd ask the why. It's about discovery. It's about finding out exactly what's going on. Because when I can see everything and I can understand what's happening, then we can start to plan. We can put the right plan in place for not only the business owner, but understanding who the customers really are, or who the customers they actually really want to work with. Because sometimes we will take clients just because they come to us rather than because we actually really want to work with them, because we want money. And I think it's a really important thing to find the right people. And it's okay to say, actually, I do want new clients. I do want different kind of people that I want to work with. because as you go through business, you learn, you grow, your needs and wants change. So that's sometimes absolutely fine. But how you do that is really difficult, or it feels really difficult. But that's why I can
Yeah.
help, because for me, I put that plan in place to get that there. I can help them rebuild the audiences, find the right marketing strategy, and find the right business approach, because for me, they go hand in hand. Without marketing, you won't get clients, but without a strategy, you won't know how to get there. So they need to work together. And then the final part of this is about the implementation. So it's about putting what we've planned into action, setting those really clear goals. For me, it's about goals. It's like my husband will happily go out and ride his motorbike aimlessly, clear his head, and come back again. I am an A to B kind of person. I want to know there is a cream tea at the end of my motorbike ride. And it's the same with the business. So it's a bit like putting it into the sat nav. You have a destination. Once you know where you're heading to, then it's a matter of planning it there. Does the plan always go in the way you think? No, there's diversions, there's roadwork, sometimes it takes longer. But when you have that plan, then it's about just following the plan, making adjustments, measuring as you go, analyzing as you go. I'm about data. So even though I have like a massive creative part of my brain, the data is what gives you the information to work out what is working and what isn't. By looking at that data, then you can adapt, refine, and make it work better. Without that knowledge, you then are just kind of just aimlessly driving, and then you'll hit traffic, and then it'll take you so much longer to get there. So you have to monitor. So that is how I tend to work with people. And I do that in a one-to-one capacity. I'm also going to be doing mastermind and a retreat for the people that love the group program rather than the one-to-ones, because you get so much out of group programs. I think they are really, really great, and you meet community of people. And I do networking events now called Coffee and Collabs, because it's about, I call it the networking for people that hate networking, because walking into a virtual room as well as a physical room is so terrifying to people. I have to pull myself out my comfort zone to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm a performer by trade. So that's why I wanted the Coffee and Collabs, was for people that were at that point in their business, that are looking to grow, that are looking for opportunity and want to reach new audiences, but can do it in a way that doesn't feel like they're having to do sleazy sales constantly and go into the networking and just be all about the lead gen and get on discovery calls and feel like they're having to be really salesy. Some people don't like that. And that is definitely, I notice a lot with people who are more creative, because they feel that that is just counterintuitive and it doesn't work for them. And that's why I set up Coffee and Collabs, because it is about meeting over a cup of coffee, discussing ways to collaborate with different business owners in different ways. So there have been so many collaborations that have already come out of this. But naturally they end up networking, which is so lovely, because they're not feeling like they're networking. And suddenly they're making connections and they're generating leads and having discovery calls with people. I'm like, you're networking and you don't even know it. But it doesn't feel uncomfortable. It feels much more natural. And the collaboration side of it is what's really, really great. It's a great way to meet new people, grow audiences, and just connect. And that's what I really love. So that for me is just how I love working with people, is being able to give them that opportunity to connect and grow, as well as help them help them get to where they really want to be with their business and dream big. One of the things that I would have never have started a cafe, never in a million years would have thought that was even possible, if I hadn't of just let myself do it. It was just felt like such a faraway journey. And the one thing that changed my mind was, I ran London Marathon in 2017. This might sound a bit daft. And when I entered it, I had run 5K. I thought, okay, that's fine. I've run 5K. It will be okay. I'll have a plan. I will get to the end. It was the hardest thing I have ever done. It was so unbelievably painful for someone who could only run 5K to suddenly get to 26 miles. I could do
Yeah.
3 miles. And I injured myself in the process. I was fundraising because I was raising money for charity. It took over my life. But at the end of that race, at the end of the race, I suppose it was a race. It was a race with myself. At the end of the marathon, it suddenly made me realize something I thought was really actually going to be impossible to do. At many, many points, I did it. I kept going. I ran the whole way, partly because it's more painful to walk than it was to run at that point. But that was where I went, actually, I could do so much more than I'm capable of. And that's how I knew I could probably open the cafe. Sounds daft, I know, a little bit, but sometimes you have to do something that pushes you so far out your comfort zone to realize what you're capable of. And that's why I know that if I can do that, then go and open a cafe. People want to earn whatever they want to earn. They want to work in the way they work. It's all possible. You just need the right plan and strategy in place to get there.
Yeah. And you do have to remember your own strength.
Absolutely. And I think it's also understanding your weak points as well, because that's where you can get help.
Oh, yeah.
You, you've got to understand, I think knowing your weaknesses is such a strength and being okay with that. If sometimes we start a business, we do all the roles, we wear all the hats, we do everything. I will have say finance is not my thing, and I know that. And now I have help with that because I've got someone who keeps me on track with, because I would just spend stuff and it would just kind of go in and out the account and I don't have to worry about it because I know someone has got their eye on it for me, because it's not my zone of genius. It just really isn't.
Yeah.
So I have to make sure, I think I'm a business. I have to know where my strengths lie. And it's doing the marketing and strategy stuff, not doing finance. So
Yeah.
someone else can do that for me. So yeah, absolutely. Totally play to your strengths. And your strengths are what you love doing. So do what you love.
Yeah. Yeah. So if people want to learn more about your business and possibly work with you, how do you go about doing that?
First thing to do is book a free call with me. I do a 30-minute like marketing and business audit. So just come and have a chat and I'm going to listen to you. I want to hear everything about what's going on and what your problems are. So you can go to my website, naomicrose.co, and Naomi is spelled Naomi, which stands for Claire, Rose, like the flower.co. And there is a big button on the front that says book a call. Let's chat. So come and have a chat with me. Just
And
even if you think you know, when you're not in a position to work with a coach or anything, just come and get an audit done. I'll give you some tips of what you can do to maybe move the needle a bit further forward and help you just if you're feeling a bit stuck. Because I'd rather give you that advice and give you a bit of a helping hand on the way than you feel like you're down on struggle street and don't know where to turn to. So just come and have a chat. And if you're that person that's feeling like I'm just so fed up, I don't know where to head, you're not alone. Just book a call with me. Don't suffer in silence. I'm here to help.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's super important to entrepreneurs out there that are listening that yeah, you don't have to do it alone. You'll get there eventually, but having somebody that has your back just gets you there quicker.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up the call?
No, the only thing I would say, and this was the reason, another reason why I knew I could open the cafe and bar, was actually it was named after my grandmother called Elsie May. And she always wanted her own tea room, but that wasn't really the reason. It made a great PR story, but that wasn't the real reason behind why I named my business after her. She was an incredible lady. She lived until the age of 95. She looked after the elderly until the age of 87. Most of them were younger than her. She was just incredible. But the only reason she stopped was because she lost her sight. So she couldn't see to look after them. But she loved to bake. So she's like, okay, well, I'll just get talking scales then. I'll call them Jeeves. So that's what she did. She found solutions. And that was the ethos that I wanted in my business, was don't see the problem, find the solution. And that's what I did. I thought, that's it. It's just about solutions. They're never problems, they're just solutions. There's always a choice. So just for people out there, you've always got a choice. There is always a solution. There's always a way through. Just got to help, just got to find it. And don't put yourself under that much pressure that you feel like you can't find it. There is always a way. Take it from someone that's had to make some very difficult decisions, and it's fine. You'll all be fine afterwards. But that would be my one thing. Being a business owner is about finding the solutions, not seeing the problems.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about problems, that's fear-based, and when you think about solutions, that's empowering, empowerment
Absolutely.
based, so, yeah, totally agree. Alright, well, thank you so much, Naomi.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been really lovely.
Alright, have a great day.